This is the motion to dismiss that's been filed by Elon Musk. Vernon Unsworth was one of the rescuers who rescued the Thai children who had gotten trapped in the cave. He was involved in the mapping of the caves. I don't know if he actually helped rescue the children themselves or not, but he was definitely an essential part. He had made a comment about Elon Musk could take his submersible and shove it where his sun don't shine or something. And Elon Musk came back and called him, quote, pedo guy. And I think he doubled down on it. I think Elon Musk said that it was obvious that the guy was a pedophile or whatever because a British expatriate in Thailand could only possibly be there for the illegal prostitutes or the underage prostitutes or, sex trafficking or whatever is available in Thailand. I've heard of it before. We read an article about it. It's not that it doesn't happen, but how do you know that, Vernon Unsworth is the guy doing it? You don't. So you can't really make comments like that. Well, Elon Musk says he can. He can make comments like that. He is allowed. He is a person who can make comments like that. He says that Unsworth must prove that a reasonable reader would believe Musk possessed private facts implicating Unsworth as a pedophile, and that Musk's statements cannot reasonably be read as asserting underlying knowledge that Unsworth was a pedophile. And then they go on. So let's take a look at this and see what in the world Elon Musk is arguing here. Obviously, there's lots of cases cited here, and then at the end of the thing, I'll tell you what I think they totally forgot about. Or maybe I totally misread. So let's take a look. In June and July 2018, Elon Musk and numerous others at SpaceX, Boring Company, Tesla sought to help rescue 12 boys. Many individuals, including representatives of the Thai government, helped. We confronted the prospects of an unfathomable tragedy, and everyone looked to Musk, who is known for pioneering revolutionary transportation technologies at his... hang on. I don't need to start this way. I really don't. But come on. Everyone turned to Elon Musk? I don't remember that happening. I remember Elon Musk turning to everyone and saying, I'd like to help. It's fine if he wants to help, but Jesus Christ, everyone turned to Elon Musk did not happen. Within hours of being in communication with Thai officials, Musk directed Tesla, SpaceX, and the Boring Company engineers to develop potential solutions to provide assistance to the rescue, and soon after, Musk sent what would be several engineers to Chiang Rai. Dozens of engineers and Musk himself doubled down on their work. Were they not doubling down at first? Really? Were they not working their best and then they just doubled down on it? What?
Let's work half of our best so that later.
Let's work half of our best and then later we'll double down. What? Yeah. To rescue the... No, this is... So I'm just already skeptical because of this hyperbolic language. The team worked countless hours each day, even though it was only 24 hours a day, deploying the knowledge they had gained through years of developing unprecedented transportation systems. And I like Elon Musk. I'm a fan of this guy. Don't get me wrong here, but this is hyperbolic language. It doesn't need to be here. The development efforts included not just developing rescue equipment, but providing resources for pumping water, etc., etc., etc. Now let's get to the point where you called him a pedophile. The children were rescued, yada, 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 yada. Musk and his engineers were singularly focused on assisting rescue efforts. We're literally on page 3 here already. Plaintiff Vernon Unsworth decided to gratuitously attack them and insult their contributions. Unsworth appeared on CNN and for reasons unknown decided to pick a fight with Musk in spectacularly public fashion. I'm sorry, is anyone else getting sick of this hyperbolic language already? None of this belongs in a complaint. It's weak. It's weak language.
Is this the complaint from...
This is Elon Musk's response. This is Elon Musk's response. That's why I'm disappointed in it.
Why would he draw attention to the fact that his tweet was super widely read in a defense response? Yeah,
they're trying to say maybe that Vernon Unsworth was trying to get publicity from it or something. I don't know. Despite having never met Musk, Unsworth began striking at Musk and his colleagues. Unsworth called Musk's effort a PR stunt that had absolutely no chance of working. He's allowed to have his freaking opinion on the submersible.
Plus, I mean, this is a man who actually was there, who's been in the tunnels, who can say, well, nice idea, but that's not gonna really fit in there.
He also advised Musk to stick his submersible where it hurts. Which, I'm sorry, that's funny. I know that's insulting to Mr. Musk, but that's funny. It's a penis-shaped submarine, right? I mean, I'm not knocking it. It was an awesome effort, but
Is this a comedy response?
Contrary to Unsworth's assertions, the Thai government appreciated Musk and his help. Yes, but none of this addresses what you said. We're already on the end of page 3, and none of this has addressed any of the things. The facts did not deter Unsworth from berating Musk, etc., etc., etc. We're still attacking. Okay, here we go. Musk took to Twitter, a social networking website infamous for invective and hyperbole. What? No, certain people on Twitter are infamous for their invective and hyperbole. Anyway, Musk, unaware of Unsworth's name, tweeted that he had never met the dude from CNN, but was nonetheless determined to prove him wrong. Great! Let's prove him wrong using all the meritorious things. He vowed to demonstrate that his submarine could navigate the caves no problemo. And just like Unsworth did, Musk tacked on a gratuitous barb. Oh, he's trying to equate. He's saying that Unsworth said something mean, so Musk was allowed to say something mean in return. Referencing Thailand's documented reputation, Musk said that Unsworth was suspect, for being a British expat guy who lives in Thailand, later referring back to those suspicions, he dubbed him pedo guy. There was another time, though, when he doubled down on that, didn't he?
Yeah.
He said something a second time.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it's even the other way around. He first called him a pedo guy and then was like, well, it's a British expert who lives in Thailand, so obviously he's there for the young boys.
Yeah. I think he included something about being there for the young boys. And that's interesting. The public knew from the outset that Musk's insults were not intended to be statements of fact. Indeed, many wondered aloud why Unsworth attacked Musk's efforts in the first place. This is a weak response, in my humble opinion. I would not have written this response myself. He's basically going into basically saying this was a bunch of drama. Unsworth lawyer entered the fray. Unsworth lawyer chose to communicate on Twitter, the rough and tumble Twitter platform, chiding Musk and telling him to check his mail before tweeting. So all of that aside, maybe we could scroll down to an actual legal argument. This motion boils down to a single question. Accepting Unsworth's well-pled allegations as true, would a reasonable reader believe that Musk's statements were supported by objective facts or were instead non-actionable opinion? The case that they cite is Gardner versus Martino, a 2009 Ninth Circuit case explaining that the threshold question in any defamation claim is whether a reasonable fact finder could conclude that the contested statements implies an assertion of objective fact. A statement is one of objective fact if the reasonable reader would believe that the speaker possesses underlying information to support it. Musk's statements were thus necessarily just imaginative attacks, even if offensive. Such speculative insults are, by their nature, opinion and protected by the First Amendment. Context drives the inquiry into whether the reasonable reader would infer Musk to possess a factual basis for his claims. The reasonable reader doesn't take everything literally. He can spot lusty and imaginative expressions of contempt. He knows that disputing parties are very likely to include unsubstantiated charges against one another. He recognizes that there is a set of shorthanded phrases and language that is not generally found in fact-based documents. He expects the internet speakers to play fast and loose with the facts. All right, so here's where I'm going to just part with this complaint for a moment and bring up the notion of defamation per se. There are two kinds of defamation per se and defamation per quad. What we know as defamation in general is called defamation per quad, and it generally means, defamation that has to be proven by facts and circumstances, and injury has to be proved, and actual damages have to be proved. But there is something out there called defamation per se. Defamation per se, and here this is from findlaw.com. There are 4 general categories of untrue statements that are presumed to be so harmful to one's reputation that they are actionable as an injury claim. If you don't fall into one of these categories, the plaintiff will be required to prove their damage. Generally, for defamation per se, the statements are presumed harmful, whereas defamation per quad, the damage must be proven. So if you've been following along, so far it seems like Mr. Musk is arguing defamation per quad doesn't apply here. But I haven't seen anything in this complaint or in this motion to dismiss here, and I'm going to do a find here, and I'm going to go per se, does not exist in this document. So they at no point address defamation per se. Now, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Maybe the previous complaint didn't include a claim for defamation per se. I doubt that. It could also be easily amended to include such a claim. So I'd be surprised if it doesn't include one. I'm really not going to look right now because this is more of an educational thing. So generally there are 4 categories of defamation per se. Indications that a person was involved in criminal activity. That seems like it might apply here. If we're saying that a person was having sex with an underage child, that makes them a pedophile. Pedophiles are generally, it's not illegal to have such thoughts, and we definitely need to recognize that people need to get treated for any illness that causes them to want to have sex with children, but it's when they act on it, when they do something to a child or to lure a child or whatever, that's when it becomes a truly horrible crime that needs to be punished. So here, a person being involved in criminal activity is automatically defamation. If I say that Elon Musk is a criminal, then that's defamation. So, I'm obviously saying it here in an educational aspect, and I'm not saying he is in any way a criminal, but he has seemingly accused Vernon Unsworth of the crime of pedophilia. And in order to win an argument, maybe that'll come into it. Certainly you could do something like have a survey, like call a random sample of people in a clinical setting, vetted by people who do this kind of research. You could set up a study where you try and figure out what were people's impressions of Mr. Musk calling Vernon Unsworth a pedophile? Did that make them think that Mr. Musk knew something or that they didn't? And this is something lawyers would really do. And if this went to a trial, I would almost expect that at least one of these parties would conduct such a survey and present it to a judge to say that it either was a reasonable belief or not a reasonable belief, or was defamation or not defamation. But here, you don't have to do that if you prove that the person said one of the statements that fits into one of these categories. So second, if you say that a person has a loathsome, contagious, or infectious disease, so if you go around saying someone has herpes or AIDS or some other disease that people would generally want to avoid, you don't really have to prove that there was a defamatory statement made. That statement alone is defamatory per se, by itself. Third, indications that a person is unchaste or engaged in sexual misconduct. This could also apply to the Vernon Unsworth thing. If you're saying that a virginal woman is not a virgin, that's the traditional one for the unchaste part. Men are not generally expected to be virgins, but that could happen too. That could certainly be a thing. So saying a person is meant to be a virgin but they're not necessarily just calling someone a whore or something like that, but I mean, usually there needs to be more to it than that. But yeah, saying that a person who's supposed to be chaste is not, or saying that a person has engaged in sexual misconduct, that's an automatically defamatory statement. And so calling Vernon Unsworth a pedo guy and doubling down on how he must be a British expat in Thailand for the children, that seems to me like that falls right in the category of sexual misconduct. And you don't really need to prove anything further. These are the things that are not supposed to be part of the back and forth of a fight between people. Fourth are indications that a person was involved in behavior incompatible with business or trade or profession. So now that could also apply to Mr. Unsworth. A person who can't be around children because they're a pedophile probably shouldn't be a rescuer of children. So that could also affect his ability to be a cave diver. Let's say that he goes and applies to be a cave diver and someone says, oh, well, they said that you were a pedophile. That's not true, right? You want to sign here? There's the proof for the damages for defamation per quad. But Vernon Unsworth probably does not have to do that. Well, let's look at some of these examples here that find law cites. For example, in an Alaska Supreme Court case, a woman accused a man of assault, battery, false imprisonment. He brought a claim against her for defamation. The court explained that because the statements imputed a serious crime, the man was not required to prove damage to his reputation and emotional distress. As a result, his award was affirmed. In a Texas Supreme Court case, a doctor sued for a letter he circulated, or a doctor sued another for a letter that was circulated that stated the doctor had a reputation for being untruthful. The court determined that this was not defamation per se, since it didn't injure the doctor in his profession, and that accordingly the doctor had to prove that he had suffered mental anguish or loss of reputation. Although most states more or less adhere to these four categories, the precise definition of these rules does vary state to state. And that's a good caveat to add to this. I'm looking at the rule of defamation per se, generally speaking, and I'm not saying that automatically Mr. Musk is going to lose and Vernon Unsworth is going to win. I'm just pointing out a major flaw in the reasoning that Mr. Musk's attorneys have argued in their thing. Now maybe that flaw doesn't apply. Maybe I'm wrong. That's entirely possible. I am literally an armchair lawyer back here. I am a real lawyer. I am licensed, but I'm literally on an armchair here, sideline quarterbacking here. So that needs to be taken with a grain of salt too. But in general, don't go calling people pedophiles. Don't go saying they engage in sexual misconduct. Don't go saying they're unfit for business unless those things are actually true and you're willing to back it up in a court of law. Let's go back to Mr. Musk's response here and see if there's anything else that makes sense. Because so far they have simply argued that no one would believe that Mr. Musk knew anything about Vernon Unsworth. Of course, that begs a question. In order for people to know that Mr. Musk didn't know anything, wouldn't they have to know something? Isn't that what we call a known unknown, which does have a knowledge requirement? So I think that's kind of a BS argument. And if that's his strongest argument, it's not a very strong response. Now, it is a motion to dismiss. Sometimes motions to dismiss are Hail Marys. Sometimes motions to dismiss are just a good idea because you've got the money and you might as well spend it and make every chance, every opportunity to delay a case, to let the parties settle, to maybe something will come out, someone will say something, and it'll be more clear which side should win, and then the parties will walk away. So here they go over the legal standard for a motion to dismiss. They claim that Unsworth must prove that a reasonable reader would believe that Musk possessed private facts. Only false statements of fact can be defamatory. And then they're going to attack the statement as not necessarily being fact, but being opinion. Again, this doesn't necessarily overcome defamation per se, nor does it overcome any argument from Mr. Unsworth where he can prove damages or such. This was just filed 4 days ago, so we are still waiting for Mr. Unsworth's response. Let's see, Musk's statements were made on Twitter and email should receive a presumption of First Amendment protection. Okay, this is a little weird because First Amendment protection is from the government. Your First Amendment rights are protected from infringement by the government. Twitter and email are not government. Musk's statements and Vernon's statements are not government. So where does the freedom of speech come into this? This sounds more and more like a Hail Mary His strongest argument seems to be that he made these statements off the cuff on the basis of Thailand's problems with sex tourism. That's not enough. That's not enough of a connection between Vernon Unsworth and Thailand's documented problem with sex tourism. He'd have to make a connection. And there's a few more things in here. He tries to say that Musk frequently employs colloquialisms, that Musk uses shorthand writing as in sus for suspicious, pedo guy. Oh, so he does admit that that pedo guy was a shorthand phrase for the term pedophile. But Elon Musk also announces factual things through Twitter, so none of this really negates anything.
And I especially feel up until basically that point, he was quite a respectable person. I mean, it seems after that it snowballed a lot more, and with him making really weird things on Twitter. But before that, he was a lot more. He
may have just realized that he can be who he wants. He can be whoever he wants to be, and he's not really going to affect his billions of dollars. I don't know that Mr. Musk was actually ever any different. He just may have not revealed who he really was until this happened.
I know, I just meant like on Twitter itself, like, I mean, going back to where this happened, I would have probably thought at that point himself to be a much more trustworthy person on Twitter than, for example, how he is now, which I think is something to play with. Now, I had one question that came up to me, because obviously 2 days after this defense came out, the Queen of England and, well, the rest, obviously gave Vernon Unsworth a MBA and put him on his honest list, her honest list.
Whoa, wait, what? 2 days after this? Like literally 2 days ago?
Yes.
Or 2 days after the complaint?
Well, this response was for the 26th.
Oh, I gotta find this. All right, so here is an article from The Guardian. Thank you, I didn't even know this. Vernon Unsworth receives Diver Gallantry Award. Three other British divers, Vernon Unsworth included, 63 years old, who mapped the cave system, each receive an MBE. And what's an MBE?
Member of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire.
Thank you.
Ah.
I literally lost it.
The Most Excellent Order of the British Empire.
It's one level below an OBE, which is an Officer of the British Empire.
That's pretty cool. So that's a pretty neat piece of recognition for him. And I'm sorry, but that only reinforces how Mr. Unsworth knows what he's talking about and Mr. Musk is acting hyperbolically. Again, it's not that Mr. Musk is nothing. It's not that his efforts were nothing. We're not minimizing his efforts. In fact, he seems to be doing his level-headed best to minimize his efforts and make this the story about the thing. For the amount of money, and I know that this is kind of an arrogant thing to say, like, oh, you've got money, you should just throw it away on things. I get that. I'm not trying to say that you should automatically throw your money away on things. But when you've done this, if you have the money to pay for it, better to eat crow while the crow is young and tender, or surely you'll be eating it when the crow is old and tough. Gah. Anyway, was there anything left in this? I don't think there really was.
Would there be something they could use against Vernon if it doesn't automatically apply as defamation? Can they say, like, well, you received an honorary award that not many people get in Britain?
Yes,
therefore,
so actual damage is a factor of defamation per quad. Yeah. And Vernon Unsworth would have to prove that he was damaged and that he either had to take steps to correct the hit to his reputation or that he suffered actual damage in the form of a lost job or lost wages or something like that. And sometimes this is terrible. I once had a defamation case that I could not take that involved an entire town turning on a citizen because it had been reported that they stole. And they did not steal. And eventually the people who did steal were caught. But the person who was initially accused of stealing basically lost their six-figure job because they were an independent business and it wasn't HVAC, but let's say HVAC. Let's say that they owned an HVAC business, heating, ventilation, air conditioning. So they fix your heating and your air conditioning and stuff. Very, very lucrative business, very popular trade and very good reputation in that trade. So you make the town think that someone stole, and suddenly that person is not getting phone calls for business, because why would you want a thief in your house? So they lost their job and had to figure out how to sue for that. Unfortunately, it's not a case that lawyers will take on contingency in most cases, because there's so much to prove, as you see here. You must prove not only the defamatory nature of the statement, but also the damage, the actual damage, not an automatic damage award. There isn't the typical $5,000 for defamation, like someone like Edward Thomas Kennedy might say. That doesn't happen. You would need to find the actual damages. So yes, if Mr. Musk was confronted with that situation in court after the motion to dismiss was denied, he'd probably be arguing, look, you didn't suffer any damage. You got the most excellent British member of the British Empire or whatever award. So maybe he's not so damaged if he's been honored by the Queen.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask that. I mean, obviously Charles or the Queen or whoever decides who gets these awards doesn't think that he
the Queen
is a pedo.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Also, do you think that this would have been a lot better for Musk if he had just ate the crow and apologized for what he said? And,
absolutely. Something I don't understand why people don't get this, because when someone does it to us, we appreciate it, but it's so hard for us to do ourselves a sincere apology. I'm not claiming that I've never been unable to apologize, but I have definitely found that if I lash out at somebody, Brandon can speak to this. I've lashed out at Brandon once or twice, and when I find out that I'm wrong about something, I apologize, and I make sure that it's a sincere apology. I make sure that everyone knows, everyone involved, not like the whole world, but everyone involved knows that I got it. I got it that I did something wrong and that I'm not going to do it again. And, that's how you repair relationships. That's how you maintain relationships. And I don't want to call him out on the spot here, but if Brandon wanted to confirm or deny that, I'd certainly be happy to let him.
No. Sorry, that was kind of short, but no, I'm not going to deny that you learn from when you explode at people. I have my own failings as well, and sometimes those get tied up, and
and that's how human society works. We are all part of a community. We all live together, even if it seems like it's every man for himself within the law. We actually all live as part of a community. So why Elon Musk doesn't recognize that a sincere apology at the time would not only have avoided the litigation, but probably also made him look really good as a mature individual who could eat his words and move on. I think a lot more people would want to work for Mr. Musk too. Not that there aren't a crap ton that want to work for Mr. Musk now. And maybe that's the problem. Maybe he doesn't need any more of our gratitude or any more of our appreciation or any more of our respect. But he's certainly losing it from me. I don't mean like, I'm going to go boycott. I can't afford a Tesla anyway, let alone that my life circumstances, I can't really... Electric car doesn't work for me right now. Maybe a hybrid is in my future. I don't know. But we don't have enough charging stations. Charging stations are too expensive. I still have to renovate my house before I'd be able to renovate my garage, before I'd be able to put a charger in my garage, before I'd be able to put an overhead door on my garage. So, for me to afford even a $30,000 electric car would be a $70,000 expense. So those are fine. Those are good things. I'm just not there yet. We're still working on paying off those student loans.
I think the fundamental problem here is that Musk, he's used to being told that he's wrong. And his entire life, from PayPal to SpaceX and Tesla, he's been told this isn't going to work. And he doubled down. And that's kind of what got him rich and famous, is he doubled down and it worked out for him. Yeah. So at this point, he might have a little bit of I hesitate to say God complex, but sure. He does these things and everything works out. Like all the risks work out. And so why would he ever apologize to somebody for something that he said,
Yep. Well, humility is a virtue. And with that, I'm going to end our show. Thank you.
Find a cat first, or?
Do you want to find a cat? Go find a cat. And I'll bring up the outro. I hope you all have a wonderful New Year's celebration, which we call Hogmanay here in Scotland. We're probably going to have a quiet one because there are just so many people celebrating New Year's and Hogmanay. Oh, you want me to handle one of these cats? The claws are out, you know.
Oh, I don't hate that much.
So thank you for joining me, everyone. I am Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney, and this is Lucy, and that's Penny, and that's the one that peed on my luggage. And I want to thank all of you who support our efforts to make these videos. We currently are still using patreon.com. I understand they're not everybody's favorite platform right now, but we will switch when we have a firm grasp on other platforms, or instead of switch, we'll probably just end up diversifying. But for now, we do ask you to support our channel on patreon.com/ljfrench. Currently, for the month of December, we have Justin Rogers supporting us at the $500 level. I'm working on a video, or we'll be working on a video shortly here for Justin. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much to our $50 plus supporters, Jonathon Doe, John Steele, Gavin Barnard, Kyle Mudrak, Eevi, Andy, Verement, Tayne, William Gonzalez, Michael Pearce, Terry Chris, Richard Fournier, Spirit Bear, Jan Negrey, JAXMerrick, and Daniel Perez. And thank you to the approximately 390 or so that are supporting us on Patreon that are not listed here, but will be listed in the description of the video. And when I get back home, of course, we'll figure out the Patreon panel again. So anyway, I am Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney. I am going to go to, well, actually, I don't know what we're going to go to. I'm going to go enjoy my New Year's celebration in whatever form it takes, and I will see you guys probably on the flip side, probably in 2019. Oh, God. The cats just attacked each other.
That cat looks very, very distressed to be sitting next to you.
It's fine.
Yeah, well, I flew drones around and I wasn't exactly happy that my things got peed on, so I don't exactly like one of the cats either right now. So have a great New Year's. Love you all. Stay safe, of course, and I'll see you in 2019. Love you all.